Hey guys, I'm here with host Eric from Talking with Famous People. He's an ENTP. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, she said, and I'm 47 years old, I have a daughter, and I've been doing YouTube for about 6 years or 5 years or so.
So the reason why we're even talking right now is because Eric actually did a video about one of my videos, basically as the type police. So would you like to kind of explain where you got your inspiration to do type police and what exactly you're trying to gain from that?
I would say I got the police originally from somebody named Diamond R something. I don't remember her last name. But anyway, on sometimes, and she is mine, and she didn't think C.S. Joseph was ENTP, and so I first episode police actually was with this guy Opaloid, and he and I looked at that video, some of his C.S. Joseph's videos, concluded that we ENTP. That was explanation. And then a lot later than that, I made one police video, and then did really well. Did a lot better than most of my videos. So I just started doing them, and I realized, say, it's a repeatable, no effort idea.
I think I don't know if everybody else heard exactly what you said. I can kind of understand what you were saying, but I think the internet connection's really bad.
Okay, let me change mics. Let me change mics to the camera mic, which will put less strain on everything.
Okay.
Current mics are it's a stereo mic setup that there's more bandwidth.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Everybody, well, so far the people that are watching said that the audio is weird. Can you guys hear me okay?
Is that better?
What was that?
Is this better?
It seems to be. Do you want to, I'm sorry about that, but do you want to explain a little bit, or can you explain a little bit of what you were saying? Because I don't think people really caught it about what you were saying about type police.
The original type police was done on CS because I received a message from a person who, any member, talking with friends. She didn't think Joseph would be. So,
I think, sorry, I think the audio is still bad.
Videos. Let me do something here on the refresh here.
Okay, sorry about that. That's the thing about these interviews is sometimes internet connection can be bad. Okay. Okay. So let me know once you get that figured out. While we're waiting for Eric, do you guys have any questions you want to ask him? Okay, I think he's gonna have to rejoin the live stream. Hey.
Hi. Let me make sure yeah, that's right. Okay,
This seems to be better. This seems to be better.
All right, cool. So just to repeat then again what I said, I got it down well now. The first episode of Type Police was not actually an episode of Type Police. It was a community member shot me a Facebook message, said she didn't think C.S. Joseph was an ENTP. Wanted to know what I thought. So Opaloid, this guy who was hanging out with us at the time, and I made a video about it, and we thought he wasn't an ENTP. And then I didn't really Type Police anybody for a long time. Then recently I did one of those, one Type Police video where I looked at somebody's YouTube channel and said, I don't think they're this. And it did a lot better than most of my videos. So I decided to do it again. And after I'd done a few of them, I realized this is sort of like the holy grail of YouTube, in the sense that it's a single idea it's like it's got NI to it. It is a single thing, and it's repeatable. It doesn't require any editing. It's easy to make them, and people seem to like the format. So I just not that long ago, like a week ago, started doing these things all the time.
Well, that's awesome. That's kind of like these interviews. I don't know if you are that familiar with the way I do these interviews, but I've done quite a few. And I was telling you this before, but they go on for a while. I wouldn't say that these are necessarily my most popular videos, but I find them very interesting, and I think they'll be great for people to look on in the future. And they're also something that I can continue doing basically forever, because there's so many different people out there.
And it doesn't require you to come up with a particular idea to say, okay, I'm going to execute this idea for a video. You can come in and rely on the fact that you're interviewing somebody to provide the ideational scaffolding for the thing. Yeah, it's got an equivalent utility to it in that regard.
Yeah. So actually, I'm going to, because of your recent video on dark salmon, I'm actually going to interview her in the future.
Oh,
because
cool.
I found her video very interesting. Yeah, she's going to be interviewed probably next week at some point. So,
and emails are rare.
Yes. I'm pretty sure, even though it is kind of harder to type children, I still think you can. And my 9-year-old cousin, I believe, is an ISTP. And she actually has very similar eyes to dark salmon, which is really interesting. Like the way not like the color and stuff, but just the way her eyes are set, which is interesting, and the way she looks. Not like physically, but just, I don't know how to describe it. It's interesting.
I have an ISTP girl student in class yesterday, which I was remarking to myself about, because they are rare. But for like the first time I've had a kid, and I'm a teacher, so I'm a debate coach as a job. So I work with kids all the time, and I type them all the time. You absolutely can type kids. It's not true that you can't type somebody who's in 4th or 5th grade. You absolutely can, and be pretty rock solid about it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree too, but some people definitely think, I think it could be a little bit more challenging if you're not, you have to kind of be kind of, well, not always, but sometimes it requires a little bit more effort to look at the cognitive functions if they are younger, but I do think so as well. I also have typed my cats and my dog, but that's another story.
I typed all my animals.
Really?
Yeah.
What are your animals?
I've got an ISFP, that's Capio. She's very sensual and very persnickety too. Like, she loves me, but she doesn't really like the other people. And she's, just picky and knows what she likes and doesn't like. Then we got Normal, who's an ENTP. And as far as I can tell, you could say ESTP, but he's an ENTP because he'll like run into the wall sometimes when he's playing. And then we've got Violet. I'm not sure what she is. She's a bitch though, and she might be like, I don't know, maybe ESTJ. I think she's an ESTJ maybe. And then Mason is another kind of NTP. He's probably an INTP. Very, very talkative, but not really, but more talkatively friendly than actually friendly.
That's an interesting bunch of, I mean, you're basically across the board with the cognitive functions, which is really interesting. So kind of going. Oh, well, I go back and forth about Fleur. It's kind of, well, she definitely, I mean, she's 2.5, so I can tell her personality. My mom says that Fleur is very, very similar to me. Like we have a very similar personality. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if she is an INFJ. I'm not 100% about that one, but my dog Henry is definitely an ESFP, and Pumpkin is an ENFJ.
We had an ESFJ cat who was the greatest cat in history, named Schmitty Renzel, and was just the most, just flops around, just loved constantly. But unfortunately, he was so trusting and just all about life being awesome that he was killed by either a dog or a coyote. And that was unfortunate. But ESFJ pets are great because they've got lots of FE and they're super lovey.
Yeah. I think Pumpkin is really great too. I mean, obviously as an ENFJ, he has high extroverted feeling. I mean, it's his first function as well, but he's a bit different. He's very loving and sweet, and he loves people, but he also has a sassy side to him. And he doesn't, neither of the cats, neither Pumpkin or Fleur, nor Fleur, actually bite or scratch. And you can do whatever you want to them. Like I will turn my cats upside down. Like when I was younger, I used to actually
you shoot them?
No. I would flip Pumpkin in the air when I was little, because when I was younger, when I first got Pumpkin, I would always catch him and stuff, but I wanted Pumpkin and Fleur, I wanted both of them to be very comfortable and trusting of people, and just be able to not be like the stereotypical cat. And yeah, so they really love people, and they're also very adaptable. Like I moved across the country twice with them. So like in a car.
Dogs are more FE than cats?
What was that?
Would you say dogs are more FE than cats in general?
I think it depends on the breed as well.
Chihuahuas are FI.
What was that?
Chihuahuas are FI.
I don't know. I had a Chihuahua. I don't know if she was FI, but yes, they are. Chihuahuas are very individual, and they're very protective of their owners. So yes, I would say that's pretty FI.
I had a Chihuahua, and she loved me, but she'd bark at anybody else, basically.
Yes. Yeah. No, that is how Chihuahuas typically are. As far as, so Pumpkin is a Maine Coon. Maine Coon are referred to as the gentle giants when it comes to cats. Like Pumpkin, I'm actually really, well, not really tall, but I'm pretty tall for a female. I'm 5'10", and Pumpkin takes up all of my torso plus part of my legs. So he's a big kitty. But yeah, going back to your job as a debate coach, I actually did Model United Nations in college. So I'm very familiar with that environment of debating and stuff. What would you say what is something that you really gain from being a debate coach?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of FI attached to debate coaching, and it's something that I don't necessarily always realize. This morning I got all emotional sitting here talking with Kim about how meaningful I find working with these two kids that I'm with right now because they're competing in a tournament. So And it's something I just tend to forget about until it strikes me all of a sudden. Oh, I really, this is super important to me. One of the reasons why it's so important is because it's exactly in my wheelhouse. It's in my function wheelhouse, NETI, and I am objectively much better at it than most of my colleagues. And it's because most of them aren't NTPs, and most of them aren't ENTPs. And the thing is, being an ENTP is ideal for debate coaching because you've got enough FE to really engage the group as a army. And I'm all about like war metaphors and stuff. And I tell my middle schoolers, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna destroy them, we're gonna stomp out of there with their blood on the bottom of our boots. That kind of stuff. So that's where I get my juice. When you go into battle and you know that, oh geez, my kid's in semifinals. If they lose this round, they're out. But if they win, they go to finals. And if they win that, they win the whole tournament. That's you can't get that from anything other than real competition.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, even though I do believe that ENTPs are probably the best debaters. I mean, that's a stereotype, but also I do think it's true. When I did Model UN, I was actually very competitive with it, and I also led Model European Union at my university. I was the president, so to speak. But it wasn't something that came naturally to me at first. I really had to work at it. But I think what was that?
Model Brexit.
I actually basically did do Model Brexit because I portrayed Theresa May right after Brexit happened. Right after her Brexit speech, I had to portray Theresa May, and that was a very interesting thing. What?
Did you use an accent?
No, I did not. But I also
Today,
I don't know
we are going to leave the European Union.
But I did it in the European Council. So I was portraying Theresa May in the European Council. So I was around other leaders of the European Union. And they basically obviously did not like me.
Merkel was a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the person that plays Merkel can be very strong-willed. I also portrayed Viktor Orban. I don't know if you're familiar with Viktor Orban. He's the leader. He's the leader of Hungary, and he's like Donald Trump on steroids. He already has built a wall around Hungary, and he's very just very extreme. And I portrayed Viktor Orban so well. This was in a competition a while back that the professors and the students that were in this competition hated my guts, thought I was a bitch, because I was just such a little racist, evil person. Well, not evil. He's not evil. He's actually really funny, but I basically would quote him for verbatim, and people thought that I was seriously racist and seriously against certain religions, but I was just portraying that role. So yeah, people were afraid of me. But
or what?
What?
The anti-Islam?
Yes.
Interesting.
And he also thinks that he doesn't believe in, or at least he doesn't believe that that there are asylum seekers. He believes that these people are economic migrants. So yeah, he has a very extreme view on things.
It could be both. I don't want to get into the argument about
it. Yes, that's true. That's true.
I have a position on Islamic immigration myself, and it's very nuanced. Obviously, as a debate coach, I'm not going to say anything that's going to be critiquable very easily. But the point is, this is the sort of thing. This is why people should do debate and debate activities. There's not a lot of random people in the world. If you take a random sampling of people who know who the leader of Hungary is. And I'm a debate coach, and I don't know who the leader of Hungary is even. So it's like people who are actively competing in these things, they become unavoidably knowledgeable about the world. And, most people aren't that knowledgeable. And yet everybody's got equally strong convictions, but some of them are justified by knowledge, and some of them are just by gut, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It is really interesting. And I never did debate or simulations before college, but then I really wanted to push myself. And I think that you gain so much from it. I also got to travel to Europe for free throughout college because of they only selected, basically if you made the cut, you got to go on this trip and compete representing our university, which was really cool. So there's a lot of benefits from it. When did you personally discover that you were an ENTP?
It was about 30, 31, 32, somewhere in there. And I was on the internet, and I read about personality types, and I don't even know if I took a test. I think I just read the descriptions basically, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm this one. And I was overwhelmed by emotion because it was the first time I had an explanation for why I was the way I was. Young people like you gotta remember that being 47 years old, I spent the first 18 or so years of my life without any internet at all. And then after that, the internet was pretty weak. There was nothing about cognitive functions when I read about personality types. There was nothing about cognitive functions on the internet as far as I could tell, or I never encountered anything. It wasn't until and then I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And I sort of put it aside because there wasn't any depth to explore. There wasn't an explanation I could find as to why people were like this, which is cognitive functions or socionics stuff to do or stuff like that, But so I put it aside for a long time. When I encountered it again was after I started making YouTube videos. I was making basically philosophy YouTube videos and stuff about debate topics and stuff like that. And then I watched somebody else's video about ENTPs, did some research, and found out about cognitive functions. I made one video about that did better than all my previous videos. And I was like, I guess that's a good topic. And then I started making more videos about cognitive functions and learning more about them. And now I understand them well. But it took me a long time to get the ideas all organized in my head.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I mean, it's hard for me to think about the fact I can't think about, well, I mean, I can think about it, but it's hard to imagine a world where you can't just type on Google whatever you want.
It was a world, I tell you. When we were kids, when Kim and I were kids, because Kim and I are the same age, everybody had landlines too. There was no cell phones. So we grew up in a world where your parents say, okay, out you go play. And then you are out of contact from anybody that's not in your immediate vicinity next to you until you return. And there's no way to get a hold of you. And there's no asking your phone for directions or anything like that. You have a map in your car that you look at to try to learn how to get places.
And you weren't even frustrated by it.
No, of course. Well, we didn't know any different. It's like I remember when I was a teenager, I'd come home at certain times and I'd be sort of sitting in the kitchen and the phone would ring and I'd answer the phone. Yeah, okay, well, I think we're going to go over here. And then I'd call somebody, okay, so I talked to blah, 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 and then we're going to go over here. And then there'd be this whole ring, 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 and then we'd go meet someplace. It's incredibly inefficient.
I kind of remember, I mean, as a child, because not many kids my age, because I'm 25, not many people my age when I was little had cell phones or anything like that.
Because neither did their parents.
Yes. And so I did have that kind of experience as a child up until middle school. And then middle school, I got a phone. But yeah, how did you guys meet, by the way?
Okay, Cupid. So I was trying to find a woman after my divorce. I've been divorced twice, and after my divorce, like a full year passed where I first I was like trying to go after chicks for a little bit, and then I found that very like time intensive. So I just said, you know, fuck it. I'm not even gonna care about chicks for a long time. And then I just basically didn't care about chicks for like a year. I just did YouTube videos all the time, and hung out in the appear.in rooms where we have conversations about things. The Raw channel has a bot in it. So in room 1, every conversation that happens in there is automatically recorded and uploaded to a YouTube channel called TwFP Raw. So I was really into that whole setup. I paid somebody to set it all up, and you know, I hired a tech guy to do it for me. So anyway, I was into that, and then eventually, after a year or something, I was just like, okay, I've got to get a woman. This is ridiculous.
I think everyone else was telling you, you've got to get a woman.
Yeah, I was starting to get frustrated, you know. So I after a little tryst with a person from my YouTube channel, who was a very attractive woman who I ended up flying across the country to go have sexual intercourse with. After that little tryst, then I was like, well, this isn't going to work. This is not a way to get a woman. This is stupid. She lives all the way across the country, and she's married. So it's not going to work. So then I went on OkCupid, but what I did was I enlisted the assistance of the community as a whole. And I had a video that I had me in the room with like a bunch of people before. Well, were there 4 people in there? Okay. I think there were actually more, but only 4 of them talked maybe. Yeah. There was a few chicks in there too. So, and I had them all sort of vouch for me. Like, yeah, you want to go out with this guy, Eric. He's nice. He's not going to upset you or whatever. I don't know. And so then once I made that little video, and I put that on my OkCupid profile. So that it was basically, if you went to my OkCupid profile, you'd see this community vouching for me and saying, this is Eric. He's the guy behind this channel, and you should want to go out with him. And so then that worked really well, along with my technique of just immediately shooting a message to a chick going, hey, I'm just getting out of work right now. Do you want to meet me for dinner? And I'd see whatever city she was in. Like if she was in La Mirada, I'd look up La Mirada restaurants. I'd pick one. I'd be like, do you want to meet me at Meow Restaurant in La Mirada in 45 minutes? My treat. And then they'd invariably go, I can't do that, but how about Wednesday or something? So that was a neat trick that worked. And I got some dates from that, which was very nice because I've not been historically reproductively viable particularly. But the first person I actually got a date with and went out with was Kimberly. And then I went on another date or two, but I like Kimberly. Oh, I was drawn to her. She's my dual. And she was my same age. And we have a lot of correlates, like a crazy amount of things saying this is the person you're supposed to be with. Our kids are basically the same age. We each have 1 kid. She has 1 boy. I have 1 girl. And lots of other correlates that just made it the right choice. And I haven't regretted it at all.
But the ENTP came out in him halfway through his date.
Yeah, we don't need to go over that. Kimberly.
But that's how we met.
I wanted to have sex the first night that we were going out, but she didn't want to, and I threw a little bit of a tantrum.
Oh.
And she got mad at me about that. She's still
As you should, Kim.
Oh, I did. I got onto his channel and I told on him.
Wow. So Kim, what attracted him to you?
Immediately, I would say his height.
I'm 6'4".
Yeah,
Okay.
he's 6'4".
My dad's 6'5". So
okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
I like tall, lanky men. So that would be the first thing that attracted me to him.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back, you know, after dinner we came back here to smoke some marijuana, and I was struck by how much the house and the decorations and everything was very much like my house used to be when I was married to the ESFJ that I had been married to before. ESFJs and ISFJs have very similar style, very similar like decorating things going on, and it just really felt like home. Like I came in, the first thing I was like, wow, this feels like home. And here I am now living here. I lived in this house in Temple City for 20 years before I met Kimberly, and within a couple months I moved out here with her.
Wow. Well, that's crazy. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm still on that journey of finding that person. I'm not even in the mindset of dating right now, just because.
Looking for an ESTP, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to go down there and we're going to do some shit. Pucokie, get on the back of my motorcycle. We're going to the. You're looking for that guy.
Yeah, maybe. I am gonna start really like hitting the gym, so maybe I will meet an ESTP there, but I'm not really sure. Right now, I don't know too many people where I live because we moved here 6 months ago, and I've just been basically working. But yeah, and also I just got out of a relationship 2 weeks ago, so I'm really not.
What type was he?
He actually has a YouTube channel. He's an INFJ as well. So actually that would be an interesting person. He's the biggest INFJ channel.
What's it called?
Frank James.
Frank James. I've seen that name before. I've never watched any of his videos. Actually, he's on my list of people to type police.
Yeah. So I would be interested if you think he is an INFJ or not. But yeah, it just didn't work out. I'm not going to go into the reasons just because out of respect for him.
I'll explain what happened.
What?
I'll explain.
No.
So what happened was this. Both of you guys were so FE conscious that it was like neither of you had an audience member.
Kind of. It was a little bit more than that. But again, I'm not gonna.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, I didn't say you should. I said I was going to tell. Well, for one thing, he kept spilling his coffee in your lap. You got tired of it. That's what happened.
But yeah, so I'm not really looking to date anybody right now. But yeah. That's kind
all right, you hear that, all you single guys out there? You stay away from Pucokie. She doesn't want anything to do with you. She's looking for your man's name is going to be probably Darren. Most people named Darren are ESTPs. Most ESTPs are named Darren.
That's really random, but yeah, I'll look out for that. No, but I do really like ESTPs. My best friend, Rachel, she's an INTJ. She's married to an ESTP, which makes sense because they're quasi-duals. But yeah, he's a really fun guy, and I can see why we would be. I mean, I'm not attracted to him in that way, obviously, but I could see why we work really well together. We kind of bring out different sides of one another. It's an interesting dynamic.
Is my quasi-dual INFJ or ISTJ?
ISTJ.
ISTJ. Okay.
Wait. Let me see. Let me think. Yes. Your quasi-dual is ISTJ.
Because Delilah's dating an ISTJ right now, and Kimberly doesn't like him because he's got polar FE, of course, and so he's not. He's kind of like he doesn't do the shit you're supposed to do with your girlfriend's parents very well. He doesn't go through those motions. But Delilah seems pretty happy with him, and I have a feeling it might stick for a while. And that that's probably wise. Because, well, I mean, he's SI dom, and she's seeking SI, so, you know, it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm very challenged with it.
Yeah. Yeah, they can, I mean, I believe my sister's an ISTJ, but I'm not 100% about that. They do have a difference in the way they approach things, for sure. But yeah, pure quasi-dual is ISTJ, and then Kim's quasi-dual is ENFP. So.
In fact, her internet crush is this guy named Sauce on our channel, who's an ENFP, who's this a Scottish guy living in France with long hair. It looks like he should be on the cover of a romance novel or something. Anyway, he's an ENFP, and she likes him a lot. So, I mean, that makes sense that it's funny, I've been saying to her, like, that her type is susceptible to ESTPs, but that's probably not really true.
It's not. I've been telling you.
Well, I figured because
you think every woman's is, though.
Well, I mean, they are the players.
So, but not every woman is attracted to a player.
Hate the player, not the game, Kim.
That's funny. So Kim, how did you find out that you were an ISFJ?
Well, when I first met Eric, I thought I was an ESFJ, and so did he, because my license plate says ESFJ.
It says Kim LEESFJ. The thing is, she didn't know about personality types at all when we met, right? And I was like, "You're an ESFJ," and then when I saw her license plate, I was like, "You said you didn't know anything about personality types, but your license plate says Kim Lee ESFJ." Well, it actually was just a coincidence. It says Kim Lee's FJ. She drives it.
Lee's.
Yeah, K Lee's FJ because she drives an FJ Cruiser.
That's so weird.
Yeah,
Isn't
it was
that weird?
Really, like, there was just so many weird things.
But eventually I realized she's not an ESFJ. I kept wondering why she's so not like my ex-wife. Like, where's your, like, keeping me orderly and help, like, you know, where's your, you're not really that helpful. What's going on here? And then pretty quick I realized she's not an extrovert. She just, because she has an extroverted tool function, when you go out on like a first date or something, she's going to be in full blast ISFJ FE mode, which is very, it's more proactive than INFJ FE. It's like more like, hi, man, yeah. It's got more of that shit going on. So it's natural for me to think ESFJ. But, you know, once you get to know her, she's totally
Well, Eric moved in after 3 days, so I would say.
Oh my god.
Okay, well, he didn't move in, but he didn't go home after 3 days.
Right.
So basically, he learned very quickly that I was an ISFJ.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It was pretty obvious we were both perceivers. Both of us were about, like, we're fine with sort of, well, now we feel like doing this. Okay, well, let's do that then now. And it's
10 minutes
much
later,
different.
like, weren't we supposed to go do that?
Yeah, it's much different than ESFJ, who's always on top of your shit and like poking you in the back, going like, "Come on now, come on, remember our plan." Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's ESFJ.
I do nag in different ways, though. But I make Eric do most of his own keeping. But it's been very good for him. He's almost all grown up.
Almost all grown up.
Almost.
My mom is an ISFP, so it's like, she is a nagger. My mom is definitely a micromanager, because even though in Myers-Briggs, you would think it's a perceiver, like you guys know, she's a judger, and she's very much like, you need to do this right now and get this done. So.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I forget that to even note that anymore. Like, yes, Kim's an ISFJ, but she's still a perceiver. I just think of her. I think of it so much in terms of like she's an SI dom rather than she's an ISFJ. You know, she's SIFE. But yeah, that's an important thing that some people still obviously may not quite understand because of the fact that MBTI chose to put the extroverted judging function as the determiner of the J or the P rather than the first extroverted function rather than the, you know what I'm saying. It just fucked up for some reason.
No, it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense that way. I think Socionics, it makes more sense, like, to me, but yeah, a lot of people in MBTI, they're like, oh, I'm such a judger, like, especially as an introvert, and I'm like, that's not what that is. That's, if yours says J and MBTI, you're a perceiver. So
between MBTI and Socionics helps it makes it so that you can more easily come to a conclusion.
Well, Socionics basically gets it correct. What Myers-Briggs
so you
did,
come to a conclusion.
Well, it's like whether or not you are a perceiver or a judger. Okay, what that means is, are you more go with the flow, process oriented, or are you more checking milestones, kind of outcome oriented? Ultimately, we're both more process oriented because we both use a perceiving function first, which is yours is SI, mine's NE. But the thing is, the reason Myers-Briggs put you as a judger is because your first extroverted function is a judging function. That's your tool function. And because people express in the world their tool function really more than they express in the world their nature usually, you do display more as a judger in the external world in your interactions with the world. And since MBTI is about workplace stuff,
I see.
It makes sense that that would almost be a better way to do it if you're only concerned about workplace dynamics.
Which is not right, kind of in the beginning where most people took on MBTI with colleges, and they went directly with that, with the sole purpose of looking at those things first.
Well, I think that in general, the scientific community dismissed MBTI in part because it was a commercial personnel tool. It's an HR tool. And for example, when you worked at Sprouts, I saw you working at Sprouts a lot. You were definitely in your tool function the whole time. You were using your FE.
It was interesting because I did do an MBTI test with them. It was their own, it wasn't like, here, let's take this test. But the questions that they asked me when I was doing my interview, and a lot of interviews, even with bonds, they do look at that. They ask you all of these personality things. And then when you go in with what you desire as a position, oftentimes they put you in a different position that they think, which is what happened to me. I wanted to, go into produce, but they put me in a different position. So I do think that the workplace still does use MBTI, and for that purpose.
Well, they might. But the point is, that's why MBTI did it that way. But the scientific community in general doesn't have much respect for cognitive functions at all. And in part, it's because of the perfectly reasonable objection that you can't really falsify someone's type. There's not a clear way you can say definitively, this is the person's type and this is not. And so it makes it tricky to utilize meaningfully in a scientific way. However, I would say that the things that you do have like firmness in that way on, things like the big five, are purely descriptive and they do not explain anything. So they're not meaningful on a TI level.
Yeah. So are so many tests so different and that's why people get their type wrong? Or is it because people put too much of their own thought into things and mistype themselves?
What do you think, pucokie?
I mean, I have a lot of opinions about that, just because I think it's different for people. I think a lot of people idealize themselves, or like they try to figure out what the most ideal thing is. For example, I mistyped as an ENFJ for a long time because I do love people. And so I love being around people, but I'm an introvert. And also some people, they take so much time on the test, the actual test, and they actually they'll try to, I mean, they just think about it too much that they'll skew their results because they're so concerned of like, oh, I don't want to come across this way, or like, yeah. And I mean, there's just many ways that people mistype. But I think, like Eric was saying, I think that the tests are geared towards more of, especially MBTI, it's more towards the workplace or in school or something like that. So people are not, so I don't think it's very accurate. And I don't trust the tests ever, the results. I think sometimes people do test accurately, but I always use it as a basis to kind of see what ball field people are in. And then I like to cognitively assess someone or like figure out certain things because the test could be very skewed. I don't know if that answered it, but yeah, that's kind of my opinion.
Approach.
Well, I'd say the problem is, number one, most of the tests are just self-reporting questions, and self-reporting questions will work okay for TI tool users or TI DOMs, probably less well there the further away you get from that. And so you got ESFPs who are answering the self-reporting questions based on what they want the answer to be, not what it actually is. And therein lies the problem with self-reporting tests. I think there are other kinds of tests that can more meaningfully assess cognitive functions. I don't have the single example that I use or point to. I haven't exactly made a test that I'm satisfied with that I can use all the time or something. But I would say this, that what's been reasonably effective as an idea is to express each of the 8 functions in one word. And there's a lot of different ways you can express a function in one word. And then make lists of 8 words and have people rank them 1 through 8 in terms of significance or importance or value or something. And you can get a pretty good idea of what goes where. It doesn't correlate 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. It's like usually the one they pick number 1 consistently is their tool function. It's not their dominant. And then the one they pick number 2 is probably not even their dominant. It might be number 5 or something, because people prioritize the values associated with their 5th function. They prioritize the values associated with their tool function and their 3rd function and their 1st function. And those ones will be the top 4 usually. So the 4th function, on the other hand, is something that's going to be rather deprioritized. The 7th will be like not at the very bottom, but probably the 6th will be at number 8, or maybe number 8 will be number 8. But the thing is, if you do a bunch of those, you start to see pretty clear patterns about how they feel about the different values. And it's still self-reporting, but because they're ranking them ordinally, you have a lot more control over it. But because you can say, I'm going to make sure each of these adjectives I put here is equally positive or equally negative. Yeah. And you can do both kinds too. You can say, here's a negative framed perspective on extrovert intuition, like flighty. You can do a list of negatives and have them rank those, like which is the worst. And so when I eventually get the protocol set up, it'll be, a few pages worth of 8-word rankings, ordinals, and then it's almost impossible to game that, and you're going to get a lot of data out of it.
Yeah, I think that's actually people in the comments have been saying that they like that idea a lot. And Jeffrey Sherman in the comments said, basically he wishes that people were more honest with themselves. And I think through that kind of typing system, that would be, like you said, it would be hard to rig it. The other thing is that I find really annoying about the tests themselves, basically across the board, is censors have a very high likelihood of mistyping themselves as intuitives because of the questions that are asked. It's like almost, I just don't like the way they.
Are you smart or are you dumb?
Yeah. Are you smart or are you dumb?
Oh,
I'm actually going to make a video called S is for Stupid. I've talked about this, where I talk about how people have this assumption, especially when they first get into typology, that sensors are stupid. And that's just not true. It's just not true. I think some of the most intelligent people I know are sensors, but the way the tests are aligned, and a lot of sensors actually mistype as intuitives, you know, it's kind of what people assume at first. And yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm guilty of that bias as well. I have a friend Taylor who's an ESTP, and for a long time I insisted he had to be an ENTP because he's extremely smart. And I eventually it came to understand that, and he thought he was an ENTP as well. So it's like I realized the reason just because somebody is able to keep up with me intellectually doesn't mean they're intuitive. And you know, it's the difference is in, if you were to frame it from the ESTP's perspective, it's much more purposeful intelligence. And the ENTP is spending a lot of time making a lot of meaning that amounts to nothing and taking advantage of no opportunities from the meaning that they do generate. Ultimately, the ESTP's perspective is preferable, and it's a better use of TI. That's from the ESTP's frame, you know? I'm not saying that's necessarily true. I'm just saying it's one way to understand it. And it's a good way to understand ESTPs in general, is as it is a good way to understand any type, to say, here's how they contrast against another type. It brings both types into additional clarity.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's interesting, that distinction. And sorry, I think I'm gonna start eating my pizza. I have a pizza right here. I haven't had lunch yet, but as we're talking, if you don't mind.
No, I would love it if you eat your pizza.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Okay, I'm gonna eat my pizza. But yeah, okay, so kind of going back to yourself as an ENTP, what have you kind of found about people after understanding the cognitive functions? I know we've kind of touched on this, but what are some things that you've gained from that besides like your YouTube channel?
Well, I would say the biggest area that I've gained from is in my working with students in school. So it used to be that I'd make demands of students or ask of them based on my understanding of what they ought to be capable of. And it wasn't an understanding that was derived from the reality, which is that people have distinct skill sets that link directly to their function stack. And it's ridiculous to ask any polar person to demand of them on an assignment that they do a lot of extroverted intuition. Now, you guys, I want you to be really creative on this assignment. I want to see a lot of new and crazy ideas, and I want all the possibilities. Just lay it all out there for me. And if you don't do a good job of that, you're going to get a bad grade. And you're telling this to an ISTP, it's fundamentally, you're putting them in a double bind, because they're literally, you're demanding them to do something that they literally can't do. And so it would be like asking me asking me to stand up straight and fit through that 5-foot tall door frame. It's just not going to work. So that's what it's taught me most about. And the FE thing, what it's taught me about FE is there are certain aphorisms that are bullshit. I mean, every aphorism is some sort of expression of a function bias, usually, it seems like. For example, you shouldn't care too much about what other people think is an aphorism that's about FI, not FE. Well, fuck that aphorism. I do care what other people think. And I should, and it is appropriate and natural for me to care what other people think, and to feel paid off when perception management goes well, and to feel trouble when perception management goes poorly. It's natural for that because I got third slot FE, and there's nothing wrong with it. And it's like when I first started making YouTube videos, one thing I noticed in a lot of other YouTube creators was, at the time anyway, was this sort of need to justify their YouTube making. Like they say, I'm here to help people or something like that. And I was just like, well, I'm here to get attention. And that's okay. You know, it's like, that's what cognitive functions helped me to do, is to recognize that there's no point in that a lot of these aphorisms are just that, are just expressions of function bias. So I'm not going to put much weight into them beyond that. And then you start to realize that your own beliefs and values and stuff are expressions of function bias as well. So it makes you a lot more open-minded, I guess, but I would say more broadly conciliatory. Like shit that Kimberly does that sometimes I might think is wrong, basically. Like, this is the wrong time to prioritize extroverted feeling, Kimberly. We need to prioritize this other thing here. At least now I think of it in those terms rather than you're prioritizing the wrong thing again, which I think is a lot of people in relationships who have conflicts between function values are going to express them basically like that. Hey, partner, you're not evaluating this by my preferred judgment function. You're evaluating it by yours. And that's the wrong thing to evaluate stuff by. You need to change your ways. You need to learn how to think properly or whatever. This probably happens a lot with NTs who are with Fs. And understanding functions has helped me to understand the limits, the reality of things, which is I'm a particular individual as well, and I have my own stack bias, and TI can in fact be used unfairly, and it can in fact be used in a bullying fashion, and it's not correct in the way that it naturally feels correct to me. It's just has its advantages in certain circumstances as a means of evaluating things, and it's not appropriate for other circumstances. So like that's just sort of fucking, I don't know, personal growth, personal self-development shit that makes me into a better person, makes me more ethical and more decent, and not so much of an asswipe. But still plenty of an asswipe. Let's see.
That was definitely that was well said, for sure.
Thanks.
For some reason it's doing that. Don't know why.
You want me to refresh?
I think. Oh no, it's not doing it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, that was very well said. And yeah, people are commenting on it. So what advice would you give to people that are wanting to get into YouTube?
Well, I would say that foremost, it's about persistence more than anything else, which is if you upload regularly enough, then something will happen. It may not be fast, it may not be gratifying, depending on what you're looking for, but something will happen if you upload regularly and you're producing some sort of actual content. Now, if you just upload like totally random shit, then you're going to find that there's not much of an audience for it. So, for example, I have the Raw channel, which just uploads 24 hours a day, people's random conversations in the Raw room, sometimes nothing if nobody's in there, you know? So that channel doesn't have very many subscribers. Not very many people want to watch those videos except for the people who participate in the conversations. And the reason is because it's not subject to any sort of editorial control. Now, anytime you make a video yourself with just you, for example, then you've got complete editorial control over the process and the outcome. You got to strike a balance between wanting it to be good and wanting it to be done. and you've got to find a way to crank that shit out pretty regularly without encumbering yourself too much, or you're just not going to be able to sustain it. So, I mean, for me, the experience was I started it because I wanted to down and have some place to just sort of archive them without having to worry about which folder it was in or whatever else, you know. And then I found it to be a necessary vlogginess part of my identity. Like I needed it to get out my frustrations on, just to have somebody to talk to. You know, it wasn't anybody I was talking to. I was just talking to the camera. And then I used it as a means to widen my social circle. I wanted more friends, so I had to go to meeting room, and so I started saying, "Hey, come meet with me here. I want to interview you," or whatever. And so it's like it evolved for me through a number of stages. The reality is, if you want to get into YouTube, it means having a relationship with your YouTube channel that's ongoing and important to you for some reason. If it's not important to you, if you're just, I mean, maybe if you're a TE Dom or something and you just are trying to get money out of it, then that's important enough for you. But that's going to be the slog probably unless you get on a really good idea. Be prepared for it to be a long, slow slog. For me, it's been incredibly long and slow. Like I've got more videos than I have subscribers.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice. People are actually commenting on this. They were saying there's quite a few people watching right now that do have YouTube channels, and many of them are small, and I've actually made a video about YouTube as well. It's like you really have to know kind of your why for doing things. I mean, you may not know exactly what you're doing at first, but if you have a passion for something, if you really enjoy it, and you're able to, like you said, crank it out, because that's the thing with me. I wanted to do YouTube for a very long time, but I put so much pressure on myself to be perfect. Like, I mean, have like, not that it was going to be perfect, but to edit a certain way and have it appear this certain way. And now, people that know my channel, I basically, because I work full time, so on my lunch breaks, I just make a video. I have ideas about videos. I actually have a lot of ideas about videos, but the videos that I make right now, I film on my cracked screen phone, and I just upload them right after I do it. I don't even watch the video. I just upload it. So, and I think that's pretty sustainable for me right now, because it's like I'm thinking about it, but I don't really care how people perceive me, because that's not really my concern.
I don't watch them before I upload them either.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, if I know if I make a video killing mistake partway through, like if for some reason in the middle of it something happens and then I get distracted and the phone falls and I have this long conversation and then I was like, oh fuck, I forgot I was making a video. I stop it and I just delete it. You know, it's like if it's unsalvageable, I just delete it. If it's not, if I didn't make a video killing mistake, you know, like I'm in the middle of making it. Another example would be like I'm in the middle of making it and Kim walks by in her bra or something, and Kim would freak out if I put that up. So I just say fuck it and delete it. But otherwise, I'll know that it's good enough or not. Sometimes I just won't upload it because I don't think it's very good. But generally, I have enough of a sense of how decent it is or not after having made it that I can decide whether to upload it or not just on that.
Yeah. And I don't think that works for everybody. There's certain personality types that might be more difficult to upload. And in the future, I'm going to edit certain videos, but I really like the freeness of not editing videos and just putting it out there. Because you're right. It's like I've seen this with a lot of YouTubers that are just not consistent. Maybe they're larger than our channels, but they don't upload regularly because they're trying to, they're so much more concerned about how the finished product looks and the editing and everything else that they kind of lose their momentum or even take breaks. And it's just, that's a good way to kill your channel, or at least become very stagnant with your channel, is to not regularly upload.
Right. I would say that there's a niche for lots of different things. So if in fact you're a filmmaker who is going to spend 2 weeks per video making it, then if you're able to be consistent about that, then that's fine. I mean, you know, that's the product you're producing. But I think most people, you know, if you're getting started in YouTube, that's a tough way to get started, because you're relying on this single video to be so effective that it garners a large audience in and of itself, and then the next one a larger audience, the next one a larger audience. And, well, I mean, those are going to have to be some pretty slamming videos. And the way YouTube works is it basically evaluates videos by the video, not by the channel at all. So, like, if you have a successful video, it's successful because when people start watching it, they watch a lot of it. And if that's the case, then YouTube will continue promoting it indefinitely. But if it doesn't get a good watch time ratio, so everybody quits at like 2 minutes or whatever, then YouTube just files it in the promote once every 1,000 years category, you know? And then the only people who watch it is somebody's like really digging through your channel and it's like a big binge consumer of your shit right now. Then they'll watch that one, and maybe they'll watch more than the average person, but not enough to bump it up to respectable levels.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's so many things about YouTube, and it's always changing. So you have to just be you have to be pretty current about about your YouTube channel in general. Getting back to you personally, what are your goals with your channel, if you have any goals, and what would you like to see in the future? Maybe not just with your channel, but what are some of your personal goals as well?
Well, for the channel, I'd like to see it get as big as possible and make as much money as possible. And I'd like to personally be as famous as possible. I am planning on running for president in 2024. I feel like the most qualified person in America to be president. And the reason for that, though it sounds like an outrageous claim, is because I've been spending decades of my life doing policy debate. In other words, debating public policy. And I'm probably local people I've ever encountered on broad swaths of public policy subjects, foreign policy subjects, everything like that. Additionally, with cognitive function knowledge, I understand the way that I understand why and how values conflict. And of course, if you're going to be a world leader, you ought to deal with the world in some way other than just expressing your own function bias. So I think that's actually significant. But that's my goal, is to be president, and then after that, to be Supreme Court justice.
That's interesting.
I'm only 47, so I got a couple of decades to make progress onto this before I start getting too old.
Well, I don't think that's, too out there anyways, because when I was in college, I used to tell people that I wanted to be president, which is weird on this channel because I don't think my videos really present that. But I was very, I don't know, I'm a pretty ambitious person in general, and I'm also very competitive. And people saw that when in the simulation teams, I was actually very I was kind of not always a polarizing figure, but because I was just very active, I did become kind of polarizing for some people, which is interesting because on my channel it doesn't seem like that. And
I am going to need a Secretary of State.
Maybe my major was in international affairs.
There you go.
So
you know what? A YouTube presidency. Well, what we should do is assemble a cabinet team of YouTube people we think are qualified to fill certain roles, and then we go into campaigning as a unified group.
Yeah.
We got to find a vice president. Maybe too bad Jordan Peterson's Canadian. He could otherwise be my vice president. He'd probably want to be president, but I'd have to, disabuse him of that misconception.
I mean, I could be vice president and just wait until you die. I'm just kidding.
Listen, I'm going to be just fine. I take care to consume these health sticks all day long.
Yeah, but I know I think politics are very interesting, and but I mean, just in general, it is interesting how people can perceive me on this channel. I think I represent myself pretty well. When I'm alone, I think it comes off a lot more NI dominant, which is true, but like I'm just like more in the zone I'm more in my, I guess that's who I am when I'm in my car filming my videos. But with people, it's different, and I think I come across a lot more extroverted in person. What?
Look, I think what you're getting at here is you're not an ENFJ, but you come across more extroverted on your channel, right?
No, I don't think I come across that extroverted on my channel. Only with people. Even when I interact with people.
You're saying in the interviews you come across more extroverted.
I can, not always, but
so careful. No, you're not an ENFJ, and the reason you're not an ENFJ is because ENFJ's FE is much more spazzy. Like it's like, okay, you're getting too much honey on me. You're not an ENFJ.
Yeah.
I've known intimately, like had intense relationships with two ENFJs, and they have there's a certain like smell to them that is unmistakable, and it's definitely you don't smell like an ENFJ. INFJs and ENFPs get along great because we're both equally metaphysical, and we both prioritize TI high enough and FE low enough. But ENFJs, they will run afoul. I will run afoul of them after a certain amount of conversation because they keep shoving their NI in my face, and I keep batting it away with TI.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure isn't an ENFJ your benefactor?
They're my beneficiary.
You're the beneficiary? So they're the beneficiary to you?
I'm the giver, they're the receiver.
Oh, okay.
But they don't like to receive because of their NI. It's like I go, no, not NI, SI this time. This time SI. Okay. They go, and they run away. They're frustrated. They don't listen to me. They should.
Yeah, ENFJs are interesting. My stepmom's an ENFJ, and my dad is an INTP. So I think their dynamic is a little different.
It's close.
But yeah, it's close, but it's what was that?
Semi-duals?
No.
What's that? What are they?
No, they would be. I think you're right. Let me think about it. Yeah. I think they
What?
are. They're semi-duals, I think.
No, if they're
No,
semi-duals,
they're not. No,
then
they're not.
INFJ is my semi-dual. If they're semi-duals, they're
No,
best
they're
friend
not.
type.
What was that?
They're what I call best friend types. So I call the ENTP INFJ thing best friend types. My old best friend was an INFJ. And the reason being, we're the two most metaphysical types. We just have a lot of shit in common, and the difference is way down in the fourth slot, you know?
Yeah.
So, like the NE and the NI are compatible, then the TIFE are complementary, like in the dual. And it's just at the bottom where the SE SI difference that there starts to be like, that's where the things would start to unravel. You were to be like, if your significant other would be an ENTP, things would start to unravel on the fourth slot. So it's like you'd be looking for SE, but the ENTP is not really providing it. He's looking for SI, you're not really providing it, and you guys have conflict over what really matters ultimately, and you know, so that's where the conflict lies. But when you're not in a long-term relationship with them, that's a type that typically gets along really well.
Yeah, I have ENTP friends, and I get along really well with them. And also, I dated an ENTP for a time. The reason why we broke up is he lives in the UK, but I could see that the SI and the SE.
You can't date British people.
What?
I said, yeah, you can't date British people. All the tea starts to wear on you after a while.
Well, my Nana's British, actually. My Nana's a ESFJ, and she's a British grandmother, so she's interesting.
If you were going to type me, what would you do to type me? If I hadn't told you I was an ENTP, do you think you would conclude I was an ENTP?
So what I usually do is first of all, I would probably think you were either an ENTP or an ESTP. That's what that would be my first thought. And the reason why is, in my head, I don't know how other people do it, but I like to narrow down types in my head. I'll narrow down what types people definitely aren't. So for example, I would basically knock out all of the feeling types right away. And I don't think and I also wouldn't say that you're an INTJ. I wouldn't say you're an ENTJ. Like in my head, I just knock out a lot of types. And I also think about the quadras in Socionics. So what kind of vibe they're giving in that respect. And I also do a thing where I have a thing in my head that I call the FE divide, where does someone have extroverted feeling or does someone have introverted feeling?
What questions would you ask if you were trying to ascertain my type?
That's a good question. I've done that before with people. I think with me, I just ask questions about people's childhoods a lot in interviews, especially like when I'm trying to like think about what type they may be. And I also like to think about, or I like to ask how they think about the past and the future and the present. And I also just basically, I'll ask specific questions pertaining to certain functions. It's hard for me to describe.
Can you narrow down a question about how I think about the past or the future? Like, narrow that down for me a bit. What do you mean by how do I think about the past?
So I would probably ask you, well, I would want to know how good your memory is. And I'm not saying that's necessarily type related, but it can be, and just how you describe the past. It's kind of hard for me.
You want to do a live episode of Type Police?
Do a live episode of Type Police?
Yeah.
We definitely could.
We'll find a video of somebody to Type Police, and then we'll both sort of watch it on our own end, and we'll sort of keep track of where we pause it at. So I'll be like, okay, I'm pausing it at 140, and you'll pause there too, and then we talk about it for a little bit, and then resume like that. You want to do it like that?
Yeah, we could do something like that. We can talk about it. Well, we can talk about it here and also afterwards. But yeah, as far as I don't really know who to type. That's something that I have. Like I think it's really cool that you are able to go on YouTube and just find people's types and be like, I'm gonna question their type. I mean, I question people's types, but I also don't. I wouldn't do it on my channel where I would. I mean, even though I've questioned people's types in interviews, I probably wouldn't go, frame by frame personally. But I think that's a really interesting idea, and I would like to do it with you.
Okay. So. Well, let me find the video, and while I'm looking around for one, we can we can continue chatting here. There was something I was going to actually ask you. I forget what it was. So, like, when did you get into typing, or how did you get into typing?
So, people on this channel have probably heard this story a couple of times at least. But I actually, so in high school, my friend Joey, who also has a channel, he's an INFp. And actually, he might be an interesting person to try to type. I'm not sure if you would want to, but he kind of goes between if he's an INFp or an ENFP. And anyways, he got me into it. I think he was taking a psychology class or something. I'm not 100% sure what he was doing at the time, but we were in high school and he sent me a link to the test, and it wasn't 16personalities.com. It was a different MBTI test, and I took it and I got ENFJ, and I thought it was pretty it seemed really true. There was a few things that were a little off, especially because in high school I didn't really talk to anybody except for some of my friends. Like, I mean, I talked to people, but I was very, very quiet and introverted. So that was definitely off on the extrovert thing, even though I acted extroverted at home and I was really weird and stuff like that. But yeah, it wasn't until college did I type myself correctly. And it actually was my friend Valerie, who's an ENTP. We were driving one day and she told me, she said, Emily, you're not an ENFJ. And I decided to really, I like thought about it. And I was like, Valerie, I think you're right. And I studied the cognitive functions for a very long time, basically almost not 24 hours a day, but like many hours during the day during a summer. And I really learned the cognitive functions. And this was like 4 years ago, I think at this point, 4 or 5 years ago. And I basically came to the determination that I was an INFJ. And then it kind of all went from there. And I've always been kind of interested in personality tests and stuff.
And then you have to dominate your thinking in general when you deal with people? Like, do you tend to frame everything through that now? Like, this person's expressing that function or this function, or?
I think I was when I really first started getting into typology. I really wanted to know like my closest friends and family's type. But as far as other people go, I still have that, like, it's just like at this point I don't even think about it.
Are you musical?
Yes. Well, I sing. Why?
I'm just sort of generally collecting data on INFJ musicality, I guess.
Oh, okay. Good to know. But yeah,
well, my friend, my ex-friend, we're not friends anymore, but I got the INFJ door slam from him. Anyway, he's somebody whose music I respect a great deal, and he's an INFJ, and I learned a lot from him, or how I think about aesthetics has been influenced a lot by how he thinks about aesthetics. So it's like I highly prioritize introverted intuition in my music. I want shit to be intuitive, catchy, whatever else. So I like early on, I looked to him a lot for guidance about how to get better, not as a musician, but as like a songwriter and stuff, So I'm always curious to hear, to find out whether INFJs are artistically active, and particularly if they are in music.
Well, yeah, I don't really, I probably will release some covers in the future on this channel, potentially. But so I've been singing basically my whole life, just because I just like singing and stuff. I really do need to learn guitar, but I don't know an instrument right now. But I definitely would say, besides singing, as far as art goes, I've always had a love for drawing and painting, and also doing basically anything that's to do with the visual graphic art. And I love photography. So like on my Instagram, even though you wouldn't be able to tell on my YouTube channel thus far, because I need to redo my thumbnails, because my thumbnails are really bad, I think, for the most part, because I also just sometimes auto-generate my thumbnails. If you look at my Instagram, it does have a certain aesthetic quality about it. It has a definite theme to it, in the sense of the way I edit the photos and stuff. But yeah. So
okay, I'm gonna put in the chat a link here. I like to collaborate with people, and this is an example of a song I did with my niece singing vocals with me. And I make songs a lot. I'm pretty productive in that area. So just if you watch that, if you get a chance, whenever, and if you think it looks like fun, then or sounds like something you like to do, I'll find a song where I want another vocalist, and I'll try to incorporate you if you feel like it. Check it out later. We'll talk about it later.
okay.
So I found a video we could do for a type policing video, which is this guy. He's been on my list of things people to do. He says he's an INFJ. He looks like an INFJ, but I don't know if he is one or not. I'll put that link down here as well. And I don't know how you get it so that your audience would see the video with us. I'll record it on my end locally if you want to do, but because they can't see it, if you don't want to do this now, that's fine. We can do it later.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I'm up for doing a video if you want to.
Okay, so do you want to do this concurrently, or do you want to stop this and do that?
Probably, I would say probably stop this and then do that, just because we'll be able to just like have it on a separate video for people, because this, I think this video is already getting pretty long. Even though you could also cut from this video, I think it would be interesting for those people that want to watch it. How would they be able to watch it?
Okay, well, if we were to, the thing is, what I'm going to do is record it locally. So on my recording, it'll show the video we're watching as well as us. Now, you're not going to see the video in this. If we go to the appear.in room, we can put it in the chat and show all for us to show in the room and that's maybe more convenient. And then people could join us in the room if they wanted to, up to 12. We can only have up to 12 people in there. Beyond that, the actual video from that room, if we go to the botted room anyway, would be uploaded within an hour to the Raw channel. But I'll be making like starting and stopping videos locally to record it.
Okay.
Before we do that, is there anything else you want to cover here in this conversation that we haven't covered?
I mean, there probably is. There's some people are asking if they can join that. Do you have a link to, or do you have an idea of when we'll? Okay. I guess we're gonna do it right after. What?
Let's do it. Let's do it in the non-botted room. So it's this TwFP2.
Okay.
I don't know why it doesn't light up as a link, but it's where it is.
So just have that in the so people can do it. Okay.
Yeah, if you just go to put that in the URL bar, then it'll go there, and it's a video conferencing room that has up to 12 people in it.
Okay, we'll do that. So hopefully we'll be I'll be allowed in there because I just put the link. So
well, it's locked right now, but when I get in there, I'll be able to open it for you.
Okay.
All right. So should I go there now?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and do that. All right. Well, this has been awesome talking to you, and again, we're gonna talk shortly after this. So if you guys want to check that out, I put the link in the chat to where we're going to be hanging out. We can have up to 12 people there. So if you want to go over there while we're doing this video, you can do that. And then you're also going to record it on your end and put it on your channel, correct?
Right.
Yes. All right.
See you soon.
Bye.